this is Circle Training Class C, and this is Listing Consultation. So this is, the purpose of this class is to teach you some ideas on how to perform an actual listing consultation. And does everybody sign this? Okay, so I've handed you a couple of different handouts, and the first thing is a pre-list letter. This is a pre-listing packet that what I attempt to do is get this packet out at least 24 hours ahead of the appointment, if not a little bit sooner. 48 is ideal. I get this out on probably 60 to 70% of my appointments. It takes time, and you have to know when the appointment is happening. So if you are lead generating that for an expired that morning, and let's say you got the appointment that afternoon, I wouldn't mess with this, okay? I wouldn't worry about it. But if you can set an appointment, in an instance where you can set an appointment and you've got a couple of days, then I would definitely do this pre-list packet, because this is what's going to set you apart from your competition. Now, I have given you kind of an outline of what my particular package looks like. You could probably talk to several agents in the building, and they would all do a little something different. There is also a pre-populated pre-listing packet and a listing consultation packet in the materials in eEdge in the My Marketing section if you go to presentations. There's a very nice seller's guide there that you can use, or use parts and pieces of it. Keller Williams, in the black tabs up at the very top, when you log in, there's a black section of drop-down menus, and there's some marketing tabs in there that have some handouts. A little map of how many offices are located in Keller Williams, what websites your listings are automatically put on when you list with Keller Williams. So you can get some information like that. Another thing that I don't have in my packet, I put it in my buyer's packet, but I've never thought to put it in my seller's packet until this weekend, is a mobile app flyer, so that sellers know that your property will be on a mobile app. So I do have it in my listing consultation, I just don't have it in pre-list materials. Now, I do not put a specific marketing plan in the guide. So in other words, I don't say, first I'm going to do this, second I'm going to do this, third I'm going to do that, fourth I'm going to do this. And the reason for that is because I do not want to be pre-eliminated if I am competing for the listing. I don't want to be eliminated because the seller doesn't see something that they're really hoping that I do, or if another agent has already talked to them. Again, I don't want to be judged off of a list of things that here's what I do. So you'll notice that in my materials I talk about a marketing plan, I talk about internet presence, but I don't specifically say, and here's the 800 websites you're going to be on. Like, I just don't give that information out until I sit down and can talk to them face to face. Okay. The very most important of this pre-list packet is, of course, the letter, and the letter just verifies the appointment time that we're going to have. And clipped to this letter is going to be an information that we will need to get started page, and it's this one. And what you'll see is a list of things that I would like the seller to have handy for our appointment. One is a copy of maybe their warranty deed or deed of trust, any covenants and restrictions that their subdivision may have, plot information, their city tax bill, county tax bills, land survey. I'll of course need a set of keys, and then any warranties, any work that they've done that might transfer to the buyer or help us to get a higher sales price for the property, and of course their latest mortgage statement. If I arrive for the appointment and sitting on the corner of the dining room table is their mortgage statement, their plot map, a survey, the copy of the deed, and their set of their keys, pretty much got it, right? It's going to cut down the amount of sales time I'm going to use on the appointment, and I'm going to probably be able to get the listing, just go right to the listing and price the property, and then move on and save myself about an extra 20 to 30 minutes of explaining all the things that I do. Okay? It's not necessary at a listing appointment to have it kind of what I call a dog and pony show. That's the older way of doing it. In today's market, what sellers need to know is how they're priced, what the competition is, what condition should they be in to get the best value, and they need your guidance on that. Yes, they care about what you're going to do to market. Yes, you're going to tell them some things that you're going to do, but I no longer use like a flip chart of, you know, this is Keller Williams, and this is me, and this is, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and, you know, I just don't do that as much anymore. Where you're going to see some of that fluffy information is in the pre-sale packet. So this packet can either be bound, clipped, put in a folder, comb bind, you can do whatever you want to do with it. And so when the whole pre-list packet goes, they're going to get these two pieces of paper clipped to the pre-sale packet, whatever form it's in, so it's kind of its own little handbook, if you will. And then inside the pre-sale packet, you're going to see a staging checklist, a strategic partner checklist, some graphs of, you know, activity versus time and what is your home really worth, a quick synopsis of my marketing plan. You can put testimonials in here. You can do a little bio if you would like to have a resume, if you will. There's a little information about Keller Williams as a whole. There's the Missouri Broker Disclosure Form. The yearly utility cost sheet, the quick facts, and the seller's disclosure, which are at the back of that packet, actually get clipped as the homework. So that way they can fill some of that information out prior to my arrival. Nothing bores me more than being at a listing appointment having to watch somebody fill out their seller's disclosure. I don't like to leave listing appointments without them. So I just find that it's harder to get them later, you know. But I'll leave it for homework if I absolutely have to. But again, if I arrive and all of that is filled out and it's sitting nice and tidy on the table, it's a much faster appointment and I don't have to press as hard for the marketing. Okay. Questions about any of this?
What do you say to them if you know that they're going to have to be interviewing other agents?
What do I say?
Is there anything to address in that, or?
In the packet?
Oh, okay, that's in that. We're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Generally, the packet is going to set you apart. You don't even care if it's all of this. If all it is a letter, hi, we're having an appointment, could you have some stuff ready? And you put that on their doorstep ahead of the appointment, or you emailed it to them, that's all I mean, that will set you apart from 80% of the agents out there. Like, if you're competing against 3 people, I bet you 2 of them don't do that. So, it will help you. It'll help you acquire a level of professionalism that you just can't get in person. It just sets you apart. So that's the whole purpose of it. And you know, you don't have time to do the whole thing. You've got some listing appointments before you get a packet together. I'm talking to you. This must be perfect before I put anything out.
You should say it now.
Just good. Just to get something to them, even if it's just the letter. Just get something to them. Hey, we have an appointment. Here's some homework. That's all. I mean, don't worry about all of this. This is and this is something that has changed dramatically for me over the years. You know, this packet is not the same as it was last year, as it was the year before. I morph and change and add things to and take things away as the market shifts. Okay. One other thing that is not in this packet that I probably would attach is a copy of on the MLS forms and documents. There are 4 reports that come out as a citywide report. I will pick the one that has the MLS areas listed on it. I think it's called Home Activity Report, but I might be wrong. And I'll highlight what area they're in, because the customer won't know what area 102 is, for example. And then let them see those statistics. So, you know, homes are averaging X, you know, days on market is Y, just so they kind of get an overview of what the market conditions. I don't do a detailed market analysis for their home or their neighborhood. This is macro as opposed to micro. Just to give them an idea that I do price watch and market watch, and that will also set you apart from somebody that might do a pre-list packet, but it's all about them and not about the market. So that might be one thing that I might add to this. Okay, so the next thing is preparing for your appointment. If you have, oh, I didn't bring it. There will be a seller interview sheet that I will hand you guys. I just didn't bring it in. And on the interview sheet, it is just a simple questionnaire for your preparing for your appointment. The questionnaire is going to take you through questions like how long have they lived there? Why are they moving? What were to happen if the house didn't sell? What would they do? How soon do they need to move? Is this, is it happy or sad? The reason that they're moving. Is the home currently up to date on payments? Are the taxes paid? Are there any liens against the property? How much do they owe on the mortgage? And a lot of other questions like bedrooms, bathrooms, features, layouts, and maybe a list of the top last, maybe 2 or 3 big ticket items that they've replaced in the home, something that would be detrimental to the value that you would need to know when you're doing your comparison. And I'll take a few minutes when I set the appointment or call them back shortly before. If you have a full-time assistant, this is also an interview that maybe the assistant could do for you as well. It sets a level of professionalism if you have that luxury of having an assistant, and kind of introduces that client into the team concept. It's no different than if you're at a doctor's office. The front desk receptionist or the nurse would probably do a pre-interview with you before you ever get to the doctor. Now, whether or not you have an assistant or not, don't worry about that part. The point is that you have some sort of a process, that you're not just going into the listing appointment completely blind. Don't be afraid to ask questions. How much do you owe? Are your payments up to date? These are important questions that can train wreck your deal if you don't get to the bottom of it right away. So just be professional about this stuff. So I can prepare a net sheet for you. How much do you owe on the home? Right? Just so I know we don't have any road bumps or speed bumps in our deal. Are all payments on the home currently up to date? Is there anything I need to know? Are all taxes paid on the property, right? Is your insurance up to date? Just little things like that that are just very important. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to do the competitive market analysis. That's a separate class. And then I'm going to come to the appointment. Now, if you're early for the appointment or on time for the appointment, you need to make sure that the seller knows that. So when you knock on the door and, hey, it's 12 o'clock and we have an appointment at 12 o'clock. I know that seems remedial, something that I learned in bold, but when you are on time, you need to remind them of that.
Okay, well, I don't wear a watch because they stop on me, so I can say, it's 12 o'clock, I'm on time.
Yeah, that's right. You can still point it to your wrist and go, it's 12 o'clock. Right? It's still okay.
Well,
you can pull out your phone. It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
I have had somebody, before I learned that script, open the door and say, you are the first agent of 4 that I have talked to that arrived on time. Thank you. You're likely going to get this listing if you don't mess it up. And I was like, okay. So of course I got the listing. So you just never know. Now, if you're not on time, don't do that script, right? I mean, first of all, if you're not on time, you should have called them to let them know, as to when you would be arriving. And if you didn't and you're less than or more than 5 minutes late, then you probably are in big trouble anyway. So, okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk into the home and I'm going to find the sit-down spot, preferably a table. Not every listing is set up the same way. Not everybody has a dining room table. Sometimes you're at a kitchen table with a lot of junk on it. I do not like sitting on a couch. It's just awkward to try to talk to people when they're across a room or the husband and wife are split up. If that were to happen, then I would have them sit on the couch and I would sit on the floor. Positioning is very important so that you can keep line of contact with that client and they can see each other. Don't split the husband and wife if that's your situation, or the two parties, no matter what they are. It could be brother, sister, family members. Try to get them all together so as you're presenting, you're not playing tennis, right? And trying to make, like I'm trying to do with you guys, and making eye contact, it's weird. So keep them across from you or at a diagonal angle to you, if at all possible. I usually will then give them my seller information sheet, and then if I see that the seller's disclosure and everything else has been filled out and it is on the table, that's great. I'll give them the seller information sheet, which is just simply what's the best place to contact you, what are email addresses, how do you want to be notified of showings, is there any important showing instructions. This is just kind of a setup so that I don't have to remember to ask these questions of the seller when I do get the listing, and everything's right here on one page. I also upload this to the loop when I come back to the office. It goes into file compliance that way. My assistant knows how to contact them. If something were to happen to me, Anita would be able to go into the loop and see their contact information, which is something that I do. And no matter where I am, if I at least have internet access, I can also access this information if I haven't yet saved it into my phone. So that is just kind of a nice sheet with all the instructions on it. Having that, like garage code, has helped me more than once when an agent's like locked themselves into the house with their key, or something crazy has happened like that. So I'll have them kind of sit down and fill that out. That is my excuse to attempt to get away from them so that I can go look at the house. I don't really want them to give me a dog and pony tour of the house. I want to just, all I need to see are the furnishings and the remodeling of, is it typical, is it better than, less than, what's the breakup of the space, is it what I was expecting, and is there anything aesthetically unpleasing that I need to be aware of to tell them to do, or that would hurt our pricing or our chances to sell, such as there's a big crack in the basement, there's mold everywhere, something like that, then I would need to know that. If the seller goes with you during that adventure, then what ends up happening is, first of all, it's going to take you 30 to 40 minutes to get through the house, depending on the size of the house. You hear all the stories, and you feel the need to comment on how lovely things are, and then that encourages more conversation, and that's okay. It's relationship building. But I can do that other ways that are more efficient than just letting them give me a guided tour. It just takes longer. So I'll have them fill this out, ask them to just breeze through the house really quick. If they say no, or, oh no, we'll take you, I'll try one more time to say, all I need to do is just take a quick peek. It'll just take me 2 minutes. I said, it'll save us a little time. I just need to just briefly check the condition of the home, see the breakup of space. If you don't mind filling this out while I do that, that would be great. And then later, after we've listed the home, and I will want to go back through the home with you and have you do a survey sheet on all of your features, so we can get that in the flag. Will that be acceptable? Now, sometimes I'll get there and they'll say, oh, no, we don't mind. And that's, to me, a signal that they're not comfortable just letting you roam through their home. And so in that situation, I don't want the client to be uncomfortable, so then I will go ahead and allow him to give me that tour. But at least I have already prefaced it by, hey, it's just a quick, run through. So if they start to get a little chit-chatty with me, then I can say, let's move on, or, oh, I just need to check the quick condition. We can get the details of all that later,
What is that breakup of space you keep into?
Like the floor plan, the layout, how things are.
Okay.
Yeah. Is the master bedroom in the basement versus typical on the main level, or is the basement finished? Does it have sub-basement? That kind of stuff.
So you have a sheet that you go through? You have like a cheat sheet, like something like you go and you...
I don't. I just need to look at it, and I'll just take a spiral notebook with me just to make some notes. I'm really not interested at this point of going, it has a ceiling fan, it has carpet, it has hardwood floors. Not really looking at that. I just want to know, is this house atypical of what I would see in the neighborhood, or is there something good, bad, or ugly that I need to know about it? Because that might alter my price opinion. So I'm really just looking for general notes. I'm not getting all detailed. I'll do that later, once I get the listing and I'm ready to take pictures and measurements. Then I'll get all the details for the MLS at that time. That's how I like to do it. But you can certainly, I know there are some agents that probably have such sheets, if that's something that you would really like. It's just
I'm
not.
thinking is going for your first listing. I mean, I wanted to look at a house and I'm like, okay, but where's the nitty-gritty kind of like, okay, everything was like from water to stuff and we thought it was presentable to show and sell now.
Sure.
And I'm like, we need to stage for
Go out.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I understand, and staging is often, and that's a separate conversation. That's a conversation I'm never going to have before I get the listing. Other than to say, I think in order to get this price, you need to X, Y, Z. But too many times in my career, I've offered staging advice, not gotten the listing, but had them take my advice and then help sell the house. And I made that mistake. The very last time I ever made that mistake was on a for sale by owner that I had been chasing and chasing and chasing. And they said, well, all right, we think we're ready to list. What do you think we need to do? So I said, well, I think this carpet's got to go. We got to take down this wallpaper. We got to do this. So they did all of those things.
Oh, so
I am in the kitchen signing the listing when knock, knock, knock. They didn't even have their for sale by owner signs out anymore because they were resounded they were going to list it. Well, the old carpet was rolled up sitting in the driveway. And somebody that lived in the neighborhood that was renting a house that really wanted to buy theirs saw the carpet and knocked on the door while I was there and said, we see that you might have replaced the carpet. If you did, we would be interested in buying the home. And it's the only reason that we didn't like it. And we were too embarrassed to tell you. And I'm like, no. And sure enough, they didn't sign my listing agreement, but surely they did the deal with that buyer. And so I tried to like, well, let me do the transaction or, and no, nothing. So
So you wished you would have signed the listing agreement and then told them the carpet's got to go, the wallpaper.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, and that's generally what I'm going to do. The night that I'm there, I'm going to press to get the listing signed first, then go back through the house and give them staging advice or set an appointment with my stager.
Okay, because I was afraid that I should have told them what this would be done, but I just told them we're not ready to view the house, just went and look at it fast.
Right.
And then spend a whole lot of time in it either, just because she wasn't ready to list it.
Sure. And so I think every appointment is going to be different. You're going to have to figure out who your seller is and what their motivation and how quickly they want to move. I can generally determine that and get somebody to sign the listing at the appointment and then give them the great advice. As long as I tell them I'm going to get a stager, or I will have some recommendations for you that we'll discuss once we decide to list the property. And I may give them some general stuff that obviously anybody's probably going to tell them. I mean, replace the carpet on the for sale by owner. The only mistake I made was giving them a specific list and not getting it signed first.
Nice.
But that's how classes like this get invented. Is that I made mistakes. People make mistakes and you get better, and that's what makes a great agent. Is the best agents in this building are the ones that make the most mistakes. It's just the way it is. You just get better at what you do after you make them. Okay, so then if I get done with the quick preview of the house, I'm going to sit back down. I'm going to re-review that seller information survey that I did with them prior to the appointment. So the one that I did over the phone when I took the appointment, which you do not have a copy of here. And because here's the situation. If there's two people and I talk to one, and Vicki, maybe I talked to Vicki on the phone. And Vicki's husband, I didn't talk to on the phone, so all I have is Vicki's point of view about this move to Florida that she's so excited about. But Vicki's husband, although, okay, we're moving to Florida, may not be really super excited about this adventure. So if I come in and just go, oh, Vicki, I'm so excited to get to move to Florida, woo! All the things that we talked about in the beach plans and da-da-da-da-da, and the husband's just thinking, I lost the best job I've ever had, I won't have my friends, I'm going to be away from my family, and this is not a happy experience for him, then I'm going to alienate him if I don't review motivation and his feelings about the sale. So when I have both of them together, I'm just gonna re-review that. So Vicki tells me you guys are moving to Florida, you know, and what's your husband's name? Ken. So Ken, you know, how do you feel about that? Right? And then I'm gonna get it one way or another, right? And so that way I can temper. Now, if he's just as excited because he's moving back home to be with family and he's got a great job working, then we can all be excited and happy, and then I can press on that as motivation to sell the home quickly and move fast. But if he's dragging his feet and I don't identify that, that can start your appointment being very dysfunctional, and if he's really the decision maker in the family, I'm going to alienate him as well. Okay, does that make sense?
And this whole time you're trying to figure out if they're D's or I's or S's or C's.
Right, and typically I will know over the phone who I'm speaking with. You can tell once you've had some training on that. You can kind of pick up on it, what people are. A lot of times also what their jobs are. Sometimes will also dictate who they are. Not always, but you know, typically your engineers and your scientists and you know, high-level doctors are probably going to have some C. You know, they're going to be into details. They're going to want to see reports. They're going to want to see ratios. They're going to want to, you know, make sure that you compare the house next door. Well, you know, that one has an extra half bath, and they've got a granite instead of, you know, the quartz, and they've got this instead of that, and their deck is 2 feet bigger. You know, that's your C talking. You know, so when you know you're talking to a C, you want to make sure you do a really good job on those comparables. If you're talking to a D, they're just driven right to the facts. They don't want the fluff. They don't want to talk. They just want to get right there. Just get this done. Let's get it signed. All right? You go in with a whole bunch of detailed reports, you're going to make them want to commit suicide at the end of your appointment.
Our eyes will glaze over.
Right. Yeah. Your eyes are happy, fun, chatty. They like the marketing. They like to see the pretties. They, you know, they're very social. They, you know, will definitely want you to feel comfortable in their home, and they'll be very, very, very welcoming. And then your S's, which is actually what the majority of our population is an S. Is they're steady, stable, very family oriented. You're going to see a little bit not slow moving, but just more methodical in the way they, you know, think and feel. Going to be very glued to family, friends. And you're going to see pictures, you know, on the walls, and you know, on every cabinet and surface. There's going to be photo frames, and you know, the kids' arts on the refrigerator, you know, stuff like that. You're really going to see a sense of family and unity in those types of homes. So that'll kind of give you a quick overview on how those behavior styles are. And you have to adjust that. You have the knowledge. You have to adjust to who you're talking to. Mirror and matching is very, very important. Even to the point where if I'm at the table and I'm giving a listing appointment to Vicki, I may even just scoot back and put my hands down. I don't have to match her, you know, motion for motion, but if she's back and relaxed, then I'm gonna be back and relaxed. If I'm sitting with you, you're a little more hunched up and at the table, then I'm gonna be just a little more, you know, leaning on the table. Arms up, pen in hand, takes a drink, you take a drink. Like, even, and you don't have to, it just doesn't even have to be like, do it, just touch the glass, you know? They have a hand on the face, touch your face. Just kind of mirror and match them a little bit. Don't be creepy. Yeah.
It really works.
Even tone of speech. Because that Vicki is a very slow, methodical speaker who thinks very clearly. And I'm coming out here like this, like, look, here's all the pop stars, blah, 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 blah. Right, again, her eyes are gonna glaze over. It has nothing to do with about the D, it's about how she interprets data, how she talks. So I have to match her and slow down. If Vicki's a very excitable party girl, and she just wants information, and I go, Vicki, here are the comparable properties that I found in the MLS, right? She's, again, her eyes are gonna glaze over, right? So you have to mirror and match who you're speaking with. That's very, very important. Because if they like you, then they will list with you. And liking you is probably 70% of the job. Is they have to like you. So don't go in with your own agenda. Okay, so then after we review the seller interview, I'm also reviewing their motivation. So you have a job in Florida. When do you have to be there? When, what's the timeline? What happens if we don't make that timeline? What if you do? What are your next plans? What's happening? And again, just taking maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I've already been through all of this with one of them, so I know it. I'm just re-verifying with Ken and just re-clarifying what the ultimate plans are. Okay. After that, I am going to go to the CMA section. I've done this many different ways over the years. Right now, it seems like market's just where it's been ever since the market's kind of crashed. And so the pricing piece is just really important. And even though we're recovering, I still think it's important because people are very interested and they're a little sometimes nervous about what they are going to find and the value of their home might be or how things are picking up. And so I find by getting that out of the way first, then I can usually agree to a price and then go right to the listing and then get the listing signed. That way, I'm not wasting time showing marketing or materials or strategies until I know that they will list the home for a price that I think will cause it to sell, and they at least have chosen me or have given me reasons to believe that they will choose me. If I can't get the listing right after the CMA, then I may go back through I do have a notebook that I have together. And you can do this on a PowerPoint, an iPad. You can have a different type of book. You can kind of do whatever you want. But in this book, I just have copies of things that I'm going to be doing throughout the listing. So we're going to put your house in MLS. Here's a copy of an MLS sheet. And this is what I do that sets myself apart from everyone else. I have a little advertisement here from showings.com, the appointment service, and this is also setting expectations of this is how it's going to work. Because a lot of people haven't sold homes. People that are starting to put houses on the market haven't sold for 8 to 10 years since the market's been down. So they don't know how this works. Back then, 10 years ago, you had to call appointments and go get keys, right? Or you had little crazy lock boxes. So it was different. So I like to set up some expectations about the feedback. Here's copies of some flyers I put together. Here's websites you're going to be on. Here's what my website looks like. I talk about the Realtor.com enhancements. Now, when we're talking about that, I want you to remember that I never tell the seller that the office pays for these for free. Even though we get this as a perk to our office, agents that have to do this on their own spend several $100s a month to get their listings enhanced. And when we were able to get this deal with Realtor.com, it's fabulous. We do have a hefty monthly bill, but the office takes care of it, and it really breaks down to about $10 to $15 per agent. It's what it costs, as opposed to several $100s. It was just an amazing win for everyone. So I just got some of this from the Realtor.com website and some of their advertising, just so I could show the seller, what those things are, what it means to be enhanced, and what the average agent gets versus what I get. And I invest your commission dollar in making sure that on one of the top websites that agents know, love, and trust, that you're getting extra visibility and extra photos. Okay. Now, if you guys choose to do other enhancements with other sites, Zillow, Trulia, some of the others. Again, not necessary to do this, especially if you're just starting out. Spend wisely, right? Play red light, green light, and don't go out and just bust out and enhance a bunch of stuff just so that you have nice marketing. But as you can add some things on when it makes sense in your budget, then certainly you can add a little blurb about that. So this is the Keller Williams sheet that shows all of the websites that the listings go on when they list with a Keller Williams agent. So I just show them that and kind of talk about how they will be on all of the mainstream websites. I have a copy of my Keller Williams internet sites just so they can see that. I have a picture of my sign. I talk about how our signs are allowed to be branded. I talk about the difference between Keller Williams and mainstream brokerages, which is that at Keller Williams, our broker has to be on the sign by Missouri law, but it doesn't have to be the only thing on the sign. And at Keller Williams, Gary Keller understands that it's not his efforts that's going to sell homes in the Kansas City area. It's your effort. And so therefore, he's totally okay with your name being the biggest and the most prominent on the sign. And as long as we satisfy state law with a Missouri brokerage name and the phone number, we can have a second phone number on the sign itself. So this number right here is actually, it's actually a cell phone that I can pass to a teammate if needed, or to another agent if I go on vacation. So it does make me a dueling cell phone person. Or like with Google Voice now, that's something that you can probably set up very easily as well, to have a separate phone number so that it's not a rider on the sign. So when you get there, you can order signs that have your physical name on them instead of just the brokerage. So I do talk a little bit about that. The other thing about our company that sets us apart is that at Keller Williams, it's your listing, so therefore it's your lead. So if I go out and put 20 signs in yards, and somebody does happen to call in to the main brokerage number, I get that buyer. It doesn't get revended out or passed out into circulation. Other brokerages, that's kind of how they roll, right? The broker does the marketing, but then the broker decides who gets the leads off of that marketing that you worked to get the listing for, right? So I talk to my sellers about that a little bit. If I have to persuade, then I'm going to talk to them about how this phone number is my phone number. I have the highest invested interest in seeing that a buyer is able to view your home. So I'm not going to take the buyer that calls off the sign and go show them 14 other properties. I'm going to show them yours first. And then if it doesn't suit, sure, I may attempt to go chase that buyer down as business. But my first goal is to make sure, Vicki, that your home is sold. And so to do that, I'm always going to make sure that buyers that inquire about the marketing come to me and me directly, and that your home has first opportunity if that's the lender calling you on. Does that sound fair? Perfect. Okay? So that's kind of how I'm using
I
that.
have another question. We usually do buyers exclusive agencies, and when you're going to show another buyer that, or you have to return it to a transaction broker, how do you address that?
So how I would address that is when I show my own property, I take a copy of the listing flyer, maybe the MLS customer version, and I take the Missouri Broker Disclosure form, and then seller disclosures and anything else, and I fold it all up into the Missouri Broker form. And then when I meet them, I would say, hi, my name is Carolyn, I'm the listing agent. Here's a little brochure about how agents work in our state. And here's some information about the property. If you're ready, I'll be happy to show you the home. So have I done my job? I've given them the Missouri Broker Disclosure form. I've told them I'm the listing agent, or you can even say I represent the seller. And I'm inviting them in to take a look at the home. If they have a care at that point about being represented, they certainly can speak up. Most buyers, they just want to see the house. They really, really do.
What do you got to do for paperwork?
So then if I write an offer, so if they walk in and they love the property, I represent my seller and they are unrepresented. So I'm literally checking unrepresented on page 14 of the real estate contract. Okay.
Well, you can also do a transaction broker listing.
You can alter your listing. In order to be a transaction broker, you have to have a buyer agency and a exclusive right to sell, and then you change those into, right?
Well, they actually have an exclusive listing transaction.
But you're not going to do that. No, you're not going to do that. You don't need to do that. So it's just easier and simpler if they're just unrepresented. There's no reason for me to sign a buyer agency with you just so I can undo it. And most sellers don't like the idea of having their agency relationship change. So I wouldn't do that unless I had a buyer in pocket that already, and I've had that happen where I listed something in the 180s, my buyer was like at 140, and I never thought they would all meet. Well, my seller did a reduction and my buyer did an increase, and that happened a couple of times until suddenly around the 150 mark, we all met. And I realized that, gosh, I might have the buyer for this house right here. So full disclosure, I, call the seller, talk to the buyer, hey, I've got a represented party that I'm working with. If I show them the house, I have to be neutral. I can't do anything. I can't tell you anything. I can't give you advice on this one. Do I have your permission to do that, or would you like me to refer one of the parties off to another agent? Depending on who I met first, would probably determine who I referred. And both parties said, no, if we can get into the right house, if we can get the right, right, we get the right buyer, we don't care, we're neutral, we just need to get this done.
Okay.
And so then in that situation, I did turn myself into a transaction broker. But you're not going to change your listing just because you have an unrepped buyer.
So what happens with the commission in that situation?
You get 6%. Well, if that's what you.
Well, I listed my mom's house, and I'm actually an exclusive listed transaction broker, and she's good with it, because I told her, I said, so I could be able to sell this house. She's like, okay. They don't care, they just want to understand it or know what you're doing, and then.
Right, disclosure is key. I mean, whenever, and it's key with the buyer. I just sold one of my own listings in the spring, and, met the buyer at the house, did my usual thing. He liked the house, he was comfortable with me. And just said, and I offered him, even before I wrote the offer, I brought him back here to the office, and I said, now I want to just reiterate, I am the listing agent. I do represent them. I cannot represent you, but I can, certainly write up this offer and go present it. And but I can't give you any advice or value advice on this deal. Are you comfortable with that? And he said, yeah, no, you seem fine, and you have to be honest, right? And I was like, well, yeah, I can't lie or not disclose anything to you, but I just can't tell you what I think or what I know. And he said, no, that's fine.
So
and
he used you as on the buyer's side and didn't get an attorney or anything else?
No.
Just totally went with the flow and you did all the work?
And I did all the work. Yep. And I will say that when that happens, it feels like 5 times more work, because mentally you're having to manage the emotions of 2 sides, of which only one you can control, or not even control, but advise. And it's a hard place to be. And it's not something that I would normally, I don't do it all the time. In fact, if I really feel like I have an interested buyer for one of my own listings, I'm almost more comfortable just referring it right from the get-go and just taking my referral fee. So this makes things life a little easier, yeah. Okay, so, then I've got stuff with my mobile app in here with the little flyer about the mobile app, what the home flyers might look like, postcards, door knocking, anything like that you want to put in here. And then in the back of my book, I've got like our service providers, right? So I've got lenders, I've got the title company. In fact, this card is a very nice thing to have in your listing book, because then when you're doing the seller's estimated proceeds sheet, you can tell how much the title work is going to cost. And if you need to get one of these cards, you can pick one up at the title office. They will give you one happily.
Or you get the app too. The app's good. It figures it out for you.
Yes.
Do you keep this notebook pretty much intact and just customize what you're giving to the seller?
I'm not handing them this. This is my show book that comes back with me. Yeah. So I don't hand them anything other than what I handed you.
And you don't usually do it unless they're still not signing it, right?
Right. Now, even if I do get them to sign the listing right up front, I may still go back and just breeze through a couple of things, because some of this is expectation setting of this is what the MLS is going to look like. It's my reminder to let them know that this doesn't happen instantaneously, that typically I'll list, we'll stage, I'm going to take pictures. Like it's part of the expectation setting. And then you'll see your home on the internet within 24 to 72 hours of me actually getting the listing activated. But once I activate, 7,500 agents in the Kansas City area, all of which may have a buyer, will be here, will know that your home is for sale, even if the general public does not yet know that, right? Because we at least still have some slight advantage. A little bit. And if you want to sell your pre-marketing or pre-listing services, such as I love to do, like go into the neighborhood like the week before I actually get it on the market. Like if I can time it all out, then I'll start what Brian would call geofarming. So I'll, door knock 10 down, 10 up, 10 across, 10 to the back. Anybody that's line of sight of the house for sure. And if it's like the beginning of a neighborhood, I may even go back a little bit further. So because people are gonna be driving by that house to get in and out of the subdivision. And let people know, hey, I've got this listing coming on. If you would like to, send a buyer my way in advance, that's great. Now you have to play by the rules. You can't show the house before everyone has an opportunity to show the house, but you can at least stack up some requests or appointments. If anything, it's not really about finding the buyer, it's about showing the other potential sellers in the neighborhood that you're willing to get out there and do some work. So first weekend, they'll usually have some sort of an open house, whether that be a brunch on a Saturday morning, which I find works well when you're targeting neighbors, kind of that lazy 10 to 12. People are a little more relaxed. They might be running some errands in the morning on their way or on their way back from getting coffee, stuff like that. I'll offer coffee and bagels in the house and invite people in just to be nosy. It's called my nosy neighbor open house. If I'm doing it for the public, then I'd probably do something a little more standard time. Depends on the house, depends on the neighborhood. I have a couple different ways of doing all of that. So,
Where do you get your just listed and just sold postcards? I couldn't find it.
I just make them. But where you can find them is in the 362 intranet site. Brian has several pre-done, templates.
They didn't have it in MLS. They didn't even know what I was talking about. So I went there to get some signs today because I needed some right away. And I said,
Right.
you just listed or just sold postcards. What's that? Never mind.
I
No.
think Realtor.com has some, or
You-
either you can Google just listed, just sold.
Not only do we have templates on the 362 site, but in the e-edge, you are also going to find probably 20 to 30 different, no, you can print them actually from e-edge. Gayla does a marketing flyer class for her e-edge when she teaches. Come to that, she'll show you how to do that. She loves that product. Her and Tina use that exclusively. And the flyers are really cool. So I have a template that I've used.
I don't even know about that. I'm going to find out.
We teach a class on it, so check the schedule.
I went to the class, but I still don't understand what, I'm not in there, I can't get my listing in there, I'm gonna have to call them. I got a listing, so I'm trying.
Okay, you just call them, just
Yeah.
call them. Okay, that's what you think. Also in the book, I keep, cards of my extra service providers. I keep key rings that I can write on, and I don't write the whole address on the key ring just in case I were to lose it. But I have taken more than one listing in a day and can mix up the keys.
Oh, no.
So may you have that problem.
Yes, maybe.
Our moving company have got their cards in here. I paint colors, so I can tell them this is the paint color I want you to use. And
They're okay with that?
Huh?
They're okay with you telling them specific colors?
They are with me telling them. I don't know how people feel about you telling them.
Well, I never talked about what color I'm putting that.
My standard, which is actually not this color because I gave out my last card, is Sherwin-Williams latte. Has to be Sherwin-Williams. Anything on that card, there's like a, how they come in like 5 on a card. You can go up or down on the list. That beige is like the best builder beige. It's not pink beige, it's not yellow beige, it's not purple beige, it's not green beige. It's just beige. And it's just a mainstream, boring, beigey color. But the beauty of that color is it will go with any woodwork. It'll go with the blonde woods, it'll go with dark woods, it'll go with the, cherry, it'll go with the blondes. It'll look good with just about any color out there. So I do refer buyers to that. Now trends are starting to go right now more into the grays. We're starting to see that, and maybe even a little color from here, here and there. So I wouldn't be afraid if a seller has other colors, but if they do need to neutralize or remove wallpaper, I usually take them right to that Sherwin-Williams latte and just tell them to go with that.
Do you suggest removal of wallpaper?
I do.
And it's outdated now.
Yeah, it is. I have my mortgage chart in here for a couple of different reasons, but one of them is that if they turn into buyers also and they were looking for how much is the next payment going to be, but typically I use this for motivation for buyers, sellers that may be selling for less than what they purchased and not excited about that adventure. and why now would be a good time to maybe go ahead and make that purchase. I created this for a seller a few years back that had purchased a home for $172, and it was then worth $155 when he wanted to sell and move up in price by double. And he was worried about that 15, 16 grand that he was gonna lose on the sales price. And I'm like, Kevin, no. Here's why. So I created the chart to show him that, you know, by the time your home is at worth 172 again, what do you anticipate interest rates are then going to be, right? Are they still gonna be 4? No, if our market starts to recover, we're gonna start to see an incline in interest rates, or we should. And I'm actually shocked that hasn't happened yet. So that means that if you're looking to make a $350,000 purchase, that payment is going to go from here to here because of that interest rate. That's going to cost you, and I think in this example, it probably would have cost him, I want to say $300 a month in payment.
Do we have that in here?
I don't know, but if you came to the buyer class, I probably handed it out in the buyer packet
Okay, well,
class. Also, it's not about the payment itself, it's also about the life of loan and interest paid over time. So at 4%, borrowing $350,000 would cost you $251,000 on a 30-year mortgage. If the interest rate was even 5.5%, that number goes up to $365,000 over life of loan. This particular client not only was going to save the almost $300 in payment, but also $110,000 in interest over life of loan. So after I laid out those numbers, he was not worried about the $15,000 anymore and got the listing that very night. Okay. So that's how I used it. And I've done that with multiple sellers since then. So I went ahead and just kind of did this chart. I will give you guys copies of it, that's fine. Okay, so that's kind of what's in my book. The other thing that I have in here is my seller homework. This is my staging checklist. They don't get this until they have signed on the dotted line. I have it in a cute little envelope with my logo on it. And it's just a checklist to get them ready for photo day. This is not specifically a general staging checklist, but it is to take the little things that make a photo not as clean out of the house. So for instance, a towel hanging on the stove would be normal, and for staging, that's probably just great. For a picture, it clutters up the space and makes the kitchen look smaller, or adds color where you don't need color added. Taking away little area rugs, which are perfectly fine for staging. Having a little area rug at the sink or a bathroom sink, totally fine. But when you take a picture, it cuts up the floor and makes the space look smaller. Magnets off a refrigerator or dishwasher. Huge impact on how your photo is going to turn out. Might be okay. I still don't like it for staging in general, but especially for pictures.
Do they have a class on pictures?
We started to do one. I've done one from time to time because I take my own pictures. I'll add that to the agenda coming up.
Because I'm really interested in that, because I'm not going to be a photographer.
Yeah, if you're not a photographer, just go hire one. I mean, honestly, I spend too many hours editing my photos and being a little bit of a perfectionist for my sellers, but I do like to have control of those pictures. If you hire a photographer, you definitely have to make sure that this list is accomplished prior to the appointment, because a professional generally will not fluff or fix. So if they walk in and the couch pillows are crooked, probably you're getting a picture with crooked couch pillows. Some of them will adjust a few things here or there, and some of them won't. So those are things to check out when you're hiring a photographer. What happens if it's raining that day? Will they shoot anyway or not? I'll never forget, I had a very high-end Wrist Lake listing. I hired a professional photographer thinking that would be the better thing to do. It was raining the day he took my photos, and he took them anyway, and so I have this beautiful home with a horrible cloudy sky. And I was not happy about that. So then I had to pay for a reshoot. didn't like it.
I have a question. Do you or do any of the agents as general practice say that you are spending money for staging, a photographer, and different things on a home, make your client sign a agreement to reimburse if you lose the listing?
You know, that's up to you, and I think you have the right to do whatever you think you can get. I do think that is part of kind of your cost of doing business, is that you are going to have to do some marketing and spend some money in the hopes of selling the home. If you do those things properly and everything is priced, you should not be losing your listing. And in the situation that you do lose your listing, maybe it's a good thing. You know, maybe you're not getting along with the seller, maybe you're not being a communicator. I don't know if the money that you spent to do the marketing is really worth the damaging that potential relationship. Now, if you want to put it in up front, and I have done when I've, you know, maybe had a professional stager and it was a large home, or I knew there was going to be more time needed to be spent, or they wanted me to do something special, video, or, you know, something that isn't normal part of my average, you know, and it depends on the price point too, on kind of what I'm willing to do and not do. Then I may have a fee, and you, or better, I think, is just make them pay for those things up front. Like, this is what I do for X. If you want Y and Z, here's, then I'll need you to pay for the staging, and then I'll take care of this. And I think that's, otherwise, why would they hire you? They can just go get on MLS for a fee, you know what I'm saying? But again, I don't want to put limited beliefs or thinking. I do know that there was a time when we did have a non-refundable fee that needed to be paid if the listing was canceled. But I let go of that a long time ago, and I just really haven't had a problem. If you get it priced right, and you're doing enough jumping up and down and telling people that the house is for sale, and you're doing your geofarming, whether that be calling or door knocking, and you're, you know, doing what you're supposed to be doing, the house should probably sell. It just shouldn't sit.
And I just kind of wonder, like, I mean, I totally get where you're saying at a certain price point you're going to do X, because a lot of people will expect you're going to do all of these things, and the price point on the house is very small. But I mean, I'm faced with that situation personally, where they hired a professional stager and things, and then if the listing, if the house didn't sell, or that person who I changed agents for paying for a reason, I had to reimburse for X amount of dollars.
Sure.
And I was thinking, that's interesting.
I
just kind
think,
of wondered if that was standard.
I think it's about setting expectations. If it's your policy that you don't pay for staging, then you just say, it's not my policy to pay for that, but you are welcome to do that. I have a list of a couple recommended stagers that some people in my office use, you know, or a photographer, you know, whatever it is that they want, that you're not maybe willing to do. They want to have an open house lunch with agents. Okay, fine. You know, if that's not in your budget, then ask them to contribute. You know, ask them to provide the meal and you'll provide drinks, or, you know, ask them to help you as you go. And a lot of sellers, if they like you and things are going well, they'll probably offer that anyway, even if you say that you'll take care of it. I've had many times where I have decided to do a realtor lunch, and they'll say, oh, can we, you know, have drinks for you, or hey, can we, you know, what do you need us to do, or do you want us to bring dessert, or have something ready for you at the house? You know, most sellers, if you have a good relationship with them, they're gonna be okay with contributing some things. But I think it's just about expectations. So if it's your gig that, like, and I started off when money was tighter, I definitely wanted my houses staged. I couldn't always convince my sellers to do it, so I just said, you know what, I'll do it, and I'll pay for the first 2 hours. If it goes longer than that, it's on you. And that worked well. I mean, every once in a while I'd run into a seller that needed more time, or maybe if they're, you know, mobility, a little elder, a little mobility challenge, maybe I'd have to get in there and do a little more physical work to get the house on the market, then I would make that exception. But, you know, that way the staging appointments tend to go a little faster and everybody's motivated to get them done, so sooner.
I have a second question, and it has to do with when you were talking about the financing piece. When you go out on a listing appointment, do you get a lot of questions from people wanting to know scenarios? If I do X, you know, what's Y going to cost me, or how much do I need to be able to calculate? all
Well,
these different financial scenarios for somebody who's in there taking a listing.
part of the listing responsibility that you have is doing the seller's estimated proceeds sheet. And so being able to fill that out, which is a separate class as well, that you can go, and we'll dive real deep in how to fill these things out, is probably the heaviest math that you need to know. I think the rest of it just comes from experience is replacing the carpet. Are you going to be able to sell the house for a higher dollar amount if the carpet's replaced, or if they paint, or if they put in granite instead of laminate? And kind of when are those things necessary? And I don't really know that there's a rule for that, except that you're never going to recoup typically 100% of your expense, but it might help you sell the house. In other words, you know, Vicki, you've got lovely hunter green countertops. I'm only picking because I had hunter green countertops, and that was the death of me when we sold our house. And you know, everybody else in the neighborhood has granite, and you know, in order to get you the price and to cause your home to sell, so that you don't have people just picking off the other homes that have granite countertops, I think you're going to need to spend the $3,000 to put those in. Now, it doesn't mean that I can take your $200,000 house and now sell it for $203,000. It just means that we've now brought the condition of your home up to the level of everyone else. And so, are you willing to make that investment in order to make the home sell faster? Yes, no. Okay. So, in other words, I'm not saying put in granite because we can sell your house for more, right? Because if you've got just fine normal countertops and everybody else has normal countertops, putting in granite isn't going to allow you to collect a higher price point. It's just going to make you more desirable. In that situation, it's just going to make you more desirable. You still might sell faster, but would it be necessary to put the granite in? No, because at that price point for the neighborhood, that's what everybody has. So it's not like they're going to go up the street and find, you know, better, and that's all market knowledge. If you're newer and you're starting out and you're comping a listing that you don't know what the neighborhood average is, you need to be previewing those homes before the appointment. Nothing will speak to a seller more than you saying, I've been in that house. Here's what's good, here's what's bad. You know, oh, I know which one you're talking about. Don't worry. They might have the granite, but you go down in the basement, they got orange shag carpet. right, you know. So you see, so that experience of knowing what the comps are. Also, and sometimes I have to do this, if it's a house in a strange location, a strange house in a regular location, I may have to do a two-step appointment. And so what that would look like is I'm showing up and doing just the walkthrough. So not really doing hardly anything, and I'll probably hand them my pre-list packet at that time. So I'm not doing the pre-list in advance, then doing a third or a second, you know, show up, and then a third show up. I'm going to hand them the pre-list packet at that preview appointment. And I'm just going to take a look at their house, so that as I'm going through the MLS and looking for comparable properties, at least I have been inside and I know what I'm comparing to. And sometimes that is helpful. I just did that on one a couple weeks ago where the guys lived there for years and years and years. He's telling me some things are updated, but I drive by the house, I'm a little scared. It's where real estate signs go to die, because there's painted over pointers and real estate signs that he's got for his for sale by owner signs, and there's he's having an estate sale, and he's spray painted. So you could, but he had only spray painted to the point where you couldn't see the agent name, but you could see the company. So like I could tell which ones were Old Prudential signs and which ones were Keller Williams and which ones were Remax. And I was a little terrified. So I decided to give him a call and ask to just quickly preview the house before I, you know, went back with comparables, because it might be a 20 grand difference in swing between something that's really is updated versus something that really isn't. And so that was very helpful, and I'm glad that I did it, because it ended up not being that bad on the inside, and it being a pretty cool little house. You just got some cleanup to do. So
I like the way that you explain that, though, about, like I say, putting carpet to bring the house up to this level, because a lot of times what happens, and this against my own experience with different agents, has been we set a price, and then we'll come back and say, now I need for you to do X, Y, Z, and not explaining we're trying to now get your house up to this level. It sounds like, well, you're asking me to put these thousands of dollars of doing these upgrades, am I taking the price of my house up?
Mhm.
And I never heard it explain that when you said that. It makes so much more sense. It probably would have been so much more palatable to me had they said that,
Right.
than to just say, we're gonna set the price here now, I need for you to go to spend X thousands of dollars on top of that, and we're not moving the price.
Right. Right. The other thing that can be powerful, if you have a seller that's maybe challenged with spending money, or maybe even not seeing the truth that their home needs some work or is outdated, take them to the comps. Schedule appointments, pick them up, and go show them their competition. Because nothing will help them more than seeing the house that they thought was outdated on the inside actually has a gutted out bathroom and it's beautiful, you know. Yeah, exactly. I call that brass disease. So someday we're gonna have bronze disease. You know, things are always gonna change. But that will help them to see. So if you're really struggling with someone, that's a good thing to do. Just stick them in your car, go show them the couple of houses down the street, show them the flip town they're competing with, and see, you know, what level of upgrades, you know, investors are putting into their homes. Some of them do very, very, very nice work, and so you're going to be competing against that. I think it's all about just educating them, and, you know, again, having some base scripts about, you know, pricing is no different than this. You have to have the same house as everybody else for a better price. Or if you have the same price as everybody else, and you have a better house. If you make one of these two things happen in your pricing, you will sell, the house will sell. So you have the same price as everybody else, but your house is better, or you have the same house, but your price is better, or you have the same price with a better house.
You ought to have that in your book.
I have a supplemental that I didn't bring that actually has some of the shift book that Gary Keller and Jay Papsan wrote. There are some really good graphs in there about pricing the market. I kind of stopped carrying it around because it's not as applicable as it used to be in trying to outpace the market as things are recovering. But that, I did have some other slides in here that would explain that. Or that stuff I'll put into the pre-list packet if I think that it's needed. Because you're going to see some of that in the pre-list about it's not about what you want, it's not about what you paid for it, it's not about what you upgraded, it's not about what you need to move on, it's about what buyers will actually pay for the home. That's ultimately how much the house will sell for. And a lot of that has to do with what are the buyer's other choices. And if everybody else is priced at 200 and you go in at 210 and your house is relatively the same as everyone else's, all you're going to do is sell everybody else's house first.
There you go.
You'll end up coming down in price and wasting your time. Or you can just price the same as everybody else or barely beat them, and maybe you'll get a competition going.
So you always have to decide the paper first and then you do your thing?
Yes, it is very rare that I actually get a listing and put it on the market in 3 days. But I just have them sign the waiver up front, and then it's just taken care of.
So when they sign the waiver, that is getting the listing, or?
Well, you also have to sign the listing.
Yeah, this second set of papers that I gave you is everything that's in my listing packet. So they're gonna sign all of these papers. Now, I brought a second copy. I bring a second copy of the seller's disclosure with me because sometimes if they make a mistake, then they might need to, you know, you might need to hand one of the pages to redo it. Or they may not have seen it or something like
Which
that.
one of these things do we do and do not do? I
That
do not
is
know.
no, yes, no, yes, yes,
Okay, no, yes. Yes, yes,
no, no,
We'll say we're all three for the.
no, no,
yes, yes.
yes.
Well, here's the reason why. Because although there's a rhythm to how our brokerage offers agency, if you read that, it actually says that the seller agrees
Right.
to these types of agencies. If you have a savvy seller who does not want transaction brokerage, you can technically check that no. It would normally be yes because we offer transaction brokerage, but they may not agree to it. Now that's only happening like twice in my whole career where I just filled that out and then they're like, we're not agreeing to transaction broker. You either represent us or you don't. And it's like, okay.
So we'll run through it again, which we normally how we go to market.
Can I come right back to that?
Sure.
Okay, because that gets more into the listing paper
Okay.
class, and so for the tape, let me keep it relevant. Okay, so this is all the paperwork that they're signing. And yes, I'm gonna have them do the waiver. I'm gonna leave the seller's disclosure with them if I need to. Otherwise, I'm taking everything with me, signed, done. I just handwrite all of my contracts out, I don't pre-type them. It doesn't take that much time. Typically, while I'm doing paperwork, they're doing something, whether it be finishing the seller's disclosure or they're doing a utility sheet. There's always a little something that they can be doing at the same time. And honestly, it's not that hard. It's an address, a legal description, a price, a date, a few check boxes, the amount of your commission. It's not tough. It can be done.
Legal description.
Legal description can be found in the tax records. And there's a link in MLS to the tax records. In Clay County, those have not been updated since 2007, 9. It's been a long time, but the legal description should still be okay, as long as the house was built since then. It hasn't been built since then, otherwise you're not gonna see it. You'll have to go to the Clay County Direct if you need accurate information of who owns the house right now. Don't rely on the MLS link.
This just allows you to give you more time to get your ducks in a row, right?
Right. What that does, and actually I'm going to tell you guys that that's technically not the right form. It's the same form, but it's not the right version of that form. So don't use that one. There is one on
2013.
yeah. There's one in eEdge that's updated that Bill's already signed. So you can go get that one.
So you're just filling out the paperwork and then you just have them sign it?
Mm-hmm.
And then you upload it on?
Yes.
Call it
Yes. Yes, it is my goal to leave with the paperwork signed. I never, ever attempt to leave it with them or allow them to make a decision. The class that's scripting for listing appointments will go very specifically into scripting for those types of troubleshooting problems, such as we want to have other agents look at the house, we want to get comparable analyses from some other source, we want to have an appraiser, we want to stage, we want to, any of those things that are objections, and then I'll deal with that a little more specifically. What I want to make sure you guys are comfortable with is anything with the physical appointment itself and the laying out of information.
Where is this form, eEdge?
We'll get to that in a second. Is there anything with the presentation itself, and then I'll turn that off? Okay.